Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I am Chamberlain Uso.
Good morning from Abuja, indeed.
Yes, it
is.
I'm from the nation's commercial capital. You're welcome to The Breakfast Show, Sunrise Daily. I'm Kaide Okikiolu.
Also reporting from Lagos. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Okay, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Okay, well, yes, Mark Boy is here, actually. So, yesterday I was going to pick up on what the chairman of INEC did say.
I don't know that I heard Kaide's name.
Well, at least sorry, in my mind I heard it because my eyes saw it, and I thought, okay, well, if my ears didn't, I think my eyes did. If the eyes can perform that function.
Kaide, don't worry, I cannot forget your voice in a hurry. I mean, I can see you, but I know when I hear your voice.
But you know, yesterday, the chairman of INEC was, he visited some of the scenes of where the INEC office was raised. And yes, it was good that, to hear him say that no matter what happens, yes, they will go ahead and conduct those elections. They'll replenish, they'll do what they have to do and make sure the elections are done. I was even thinking, look, even if they burn down all of the INEC offices, the elections will go ahead and hold. So that should strengthen our resolve as a people, collectively, to ensure that this 0.001% of people who are trying to stoke one thing or the other, we don't let that be. We cannot. I think we should be a lot more matured now to know their devices. They do this almost every election cycle. They try to pull one trick or the other. And then the news came through about the killing of Labour Party women leader in Kaduna, Victoria Chintex. It was horrible. And for the life of me, I just couldn't fathom why on earth. This goes against everything that we have consistently stood for us. Well, different parts of the people, different parts of the country, National Peace Committee, the president particularly. Remember, he did say that, yes, he's going to ensure he bequeaths a credible election. It begins from ensuring security of lives and property. The security agencies have got to be really up and doing about this one, because this is not the first we're seeing. Because don't forget too, in same Kaduna, when PDP held their rally, there was that clash, that violence. And then we've seen similar scenarios in Borno, and then Zamfara, then INEC offices in Ebonyi, Ogun. So these are signs that we cannot gloss over. And I think they must have looked and seen that, well, this kind of things happened. They gauge the response of several agencies who are supposed to do things. And if they get a whimper or an inch of any notion that they could get away with some of these things, that to some extent emboldens them. And we cannot allow this kind of things to happen. We all have to stand together and ensure that, look, whoever it is, they've got to be brought to book. So this just cannot afford to happen. Yes, this is one scenario. But then going about and killing people, probably because of their political inclinations, and it's unacceptable. We cannot allow this to happen.
Chamberlain, I don't even know where to start. Yes, you pointed out, incidences of violence. You do know that, we're a developing country. Politics is still rather crude, and no matter how we try to fine coat it and say we're making progress, some incidences still say that we still haven't changed the manner in which we do politics.
Unfortunately.
And that's why a lot of people have said, you know what, you can introduce all the technology you want. If you do not introduce technology in the minds of the people, if you do not reform the mindset of the people who are participating in the polls, you'll keep getting the same results. That people need to have a reorientation towards what elections, what politics is about, that it is about the people at the end of the day. And it's not about sharing a national cake. It's not about distribution of resources. It's about distribution of resources to the people, not to the politicians. And unless we begin to get that mindset right, then we will continue to do things in a way that shows that people are desperate and, they would kill to ensure that, nobody touches their share of the pie. Because Chamberlain, this is not the first time that we're witnessing, you know, when people talk about assassinations, they always say, oh, thank God we're now past the era of assassinations. So we thought. Yeah. Until recently, when we have now, in 2019, it was the woman leader in Kogi State, the PDP woman leader in Kogi State, who was brutally murdered and burnt in her home. It was not done outside. They did not attempt to kill her outside. They took it to her home. This time around again, we're also hearing that the Labour Party woman leader in Kaduna State was brutally murdered in her own home. That her husband offered money, because apparently, you might have thought, oh, maybe they were armed robbers initially or something, and they refused. So it meant that it was targeted. So it means that we're now back to the dark era of assassinations. We're not past it. You can talk about violence at rallies, etc., or people were holding the same, they are of different parties, and in the process, you know, in the heat of passion, they clashed. That is different. But this is a targeted assassination, a deliberate, intentional motive to get rid of somebody. And you know what what is even more disconcerting in this season? On Friday, we started 16 days of activism against sexual and gender-based violence. I find now that women are now the targets, because I cannot explain why it was a woman leader, a PDP woman leader in the 2019 elections, and why now another woman leader. Why? I mean, it is totally unacceptable that anybody should be targeted, you know, assassinated, brutally so. But I'm beginning to ask, why are people beginning to feel even more threatened by women? So for me, it is, people have said, oh, you know, the woman leader in Kogi State, I think they said they arrested some people or something. There was no real conclusion to that murder. This one must not be like that. It must, yes, we talk about INEC offices. INEC has said, look, we'll print the materials again. I find it a little disconcerting that the INEC chairman is, poor him. I mean, he's not in charge of security agencies. He can only talk about what he can do to say that this will not affect the elections. He's not even, I don't think that he has enough faith that we'll be able to find the culprits. But in this instance, especially because this has happened within the 16 days of activism, this must not be let to slide. It is incumbent, because the president says he wants to leave the legacy of free and fair elections, and the security agencies are under his purview. You know, even though I know that murder is also something that is under the purview of the state government, this is something that the state governments need to investigate. So I'm hoping that this will not be let to slide, that this track record, or let's say this history, which people are trying to wake up now, of assassinations will not be let to raise its ugly head, that there must be consequences. When we see this sort of grave instances where people are murdered, not for anything, from what we can see, apparently nothing but just their political affiliations, then, you know, there must be a strong message sent to not just those who perpetrated it, but also to their sponsors, because I do not want to believe that this was carried out in isolation, Chamberlain.
No, definitely
you know,
not.
The life of Madam Victoria Chintex must not be allowed to just go in vain. There must be a strong message sent, because women everywhere will certainly not accept this. And I think that not just women, humanity. Oh, yeah. You know, humanity will not accept this. That this is totally unacceptable in our politics. Coyote and Bukola. You
know, Makwe, you may have just drawn the thoughts right out of my, you know, mind this morning. Rather sad one there. And Madam Victoria Chintex was described as an industrious woman, as a hard-working woman. That may have been a potential, you know, fine administrator, astute politician, female politician that has been murdered, that has been taken out of the scene. That may have been a woman who may have served, brought her knowledge, you know, brought her professionalism to bear in Nigerian politics. she has been taken out of the scene, you know, and add to that the fact that, you know, there are very few women, you know, participants in the Nigerian political space, and we're clamoring for more women, you know, for mainstreaming of women in politics, in the media, online and offline, and she's just been taken out of the scene. You've rightly asked, why are women an endangered species in the political scene? Who was Madam Victoria Chintex a threat to? Which political party was she a threat to? Who are the powers that be, you know, that may have sponsored these, you know, disheartening, unwholesome and highly condemnable murder? You rightly referred also to Madam Salome Abu, you know, who was murdered, brutally murdered during the Kogi election. And of course, you're right on the money mark when you say that that investigation didn't lead nowhere. The fact that, you know, the murderer was convicted and has been sentenced is not enough, because during the parade he said so much to the effect that it was a party member that sponsored the killing. So who was this party member? Why have investigations not led significantly to a point where these party members will be named, shamed and convicted, just like the perpetrators? You know, it speaks a lot to how people, you know, are deserving, as they say, of the kind of leaders that they get, because some political thugs were the ones that perpetrated these you know, dastardly acts. So it leaves much to be desired, really. Why were they not able to see beyond the intentions, the intents and purposes of those who sent them to carry out this act? And it is also sad, as you have rightly mentioned, that this has been carried out, you know, within the 16 days of activism on violence against women. So the campaign must be up there, you know, that, you know, the women folk, this people must be preserved, you know, they must be allowed expression. We need more women in the political space, because when they make policies, they're making policies that will affect the lives of not just the women folk, but of course, you know, the generality of the people. And they've been known to be just as good managers. I don't want to say better managers now, so it doesn't sound like it's a competition of some sorts. It's not a competition, but they're just as good managers as the male folk. Kayode,
you know, Choli
it's really
Edicha,
sad.
really, who was convicted for the killing of the Kogi PDP woman leader, was sentenced to 12 years. But as you said, I mean, there are more people. It wasn't done by just one person. And, I mean, points to other people. What did we do about that? I just want to say, just to add, nothing much to add, really, but I'd like to ask, implore, that our family members, perhaps our party members, those who want the good of, you know, the area, the state of Nigeria, should take all of that hurt, all of this pain, all of the sorrow, and pour it all the more into, you know, what they're doing. I don't want to say, is it the campaigning, trying to make the nation better? Do not allow the bad people win. Okay, that is the essence. Do this so everybody will go back and cower inside and say, okay, we don't want to do this anymore. But no, don't allow them win. Take all of that and pour it into making this nation a better, a much more secure person. Because at the end of the day, evil will always bow to good. That's if good does not stop doing what it does best. So that's my encouragement this morning. It's really sad, but I come to it.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll start off with leadership newspaper this morning. Breaches of Electoral Act. INEC not independent, afraid of powers that be. This is ascribed to lawyers, so you may need to, of course, yeah, you may need to read it to, if you want to understand context now. Which lawyers could this be? How? Why? But look at some of the writers. Say it has failed to employ statutory instruments. So you may wonder, what are those statutory instruments? Want political parties punished for defaulting over detailed financial reports. Some functions should be taken away from INEC, Abakoba. So you also need to find out. So what functions could this be? So, but clearly there is a lot of focus on this as we move towards these elections. It's really, really huge. And even though, okay, look at this, contempt. I'm not aware of court order on dismissed officer. ascribed to the IGP. The other time it was AFCC. Now it's the police. So the thing is, much as, yes, there may be explanations for some of these things, but they cannot, these agencies cannot afford to even let this kind of errors or mention of this contempt of court on both cases. It shouldn't have even happened in the first place. So all they have several layers of officers who are supposed to be checking to make sure they cross their T's and dot their I's, because when this happens, it gives the wrong impression.
And to see it so quickly, you know, as well, just coming shortly after the order of the arrest, or is it the detention or imprisonment of the EFCC chairman as well.
It doesn't send a good message.
You have to ask what is going on. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Take a look at what Vanguard newspapers has on the front page for you this morning. Alleged partisanship. FCT police disrupt anti-CJN protest by CSOs. CJN statement in Port Harcourt leaves much to be desired, that's according to CSOs. Ask CJN to resign or face nationwide protest.
Whoa.
Okay, so there was some controversial statement which it was alleged that the CJN made. That statement was made on live television. It was not made in secret. Was at a dinner, etc. Now, the CJN doesn't speak in public, of course. I mean, he speaks at those kinds of events, you know. But what I mean is that when these kinds of matters arise, they do not take a right of reply. But the media office, so I think they now have a media office. They have now released a statement saying that the CJN statement has been misconstrued, or that, you know, they didn't listen properly. But I don't think that it needs to be complicated, because what he said was said on live TV. We need to go and fact check. Did the CJN, you know, say the things he was alleged to have said? Is this protest in order? The people who are protesting, did they watch the video again? Are they trying to pull a wool over our eyes? Not the protesters now, it's the media office of the CJN trying to pull a wool over. I think that, you know, the media can help out with that fact check. You know, what did the CJN say about the wife of the governor of his state? And, you know, with the governor of his state belonging to G5, etc. Did he really say those things? So I don't think it should be complicated, but this is what we're seeing now, alleged partisanship. FCT police disrupt anti-CJN protests by CSOs, but there needs to be a double check on what it is that the CJN said or did not say.
Yeah.
Look at this one. Aipo Bohanese, others blast minister for defending herders. It's a page 11 read. Adeleke Oyetola clash over sacked workers, executive orders. That is also there. Gunmen kill Labour Party local government area woman leader in Kaduna. That's also on the front page as well. And I don't know what this is about, but look at this. RT 200, CBN pays 81 billion naira rebate to eligible non-oil exporters. Oh, there's a non-oil export summit that was held in, I don't know whether it's still holding in Lagos. And I think this is some of the outcome that been reported on the front page this morning. Let's leave it there for Vanguard newspapers.
And from Vanguard newspapers, let's turn our attention to the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And it leads with something, of course, that interests me and interests a lot of Nigerians as well. This is the big story. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Ogun, Oyo, to deploy drones to tackle kidnappers. That is heartening, you know, for the travelers and other users, you know, of that road. It's a page 3 read. And it's just not just to tackle kidnappers, of course that's key, but also to look at other issues, particularly accessibility, you know, of the route, particularly during Christmas. Of course, there's been a lot of stories, you know, about crime, criminality, kidnapping of innocent citizens. But if the road is, you know, accessible and travel time can be shorter, then, you know, the security part of it would have been tackled significantly. So from there, let's just take a look at a few more stories before we exit the Nigerian Tribune. Let's go above the nameplate now to see this one. From yesterday, court sentences IGP to 3 months in prison for contempt, and the police have responded, also from yesterday. Police not aware of court order on reinstatement of dismissed officer. That's the force public relations officer. I think it stemmed from a force man who sued the force court over, compulsory dismissal or something about retirement before time. And lastly, let's see this one. Just beneath the big story, Ekiti Assembly crisis. I won't withdraw case against my removal, Aribi Shogun. That's the removed speaker of the Ekiti State House of Assembly. And of course, there's been a flurry of reactions, from particularly senior advocates of Nigeria who are saying that his removal was unconstitutional and that would be, addressed in a court of law. Let's leave it there now for the Nigerian Tribune.
We'll take a look at Daily Trust next with this one. This concerns security and it has an international dimension to it. Daily Trust leads with Russia-Ukraine war, weapons being smuggled to Lake Chad region. That's according to the president. Now, just imagine the scale of that. I mean, we're still blaming what happened in Libya, years ago for arms influx. So imagine if you were to add the Russia-Ukraine war to this mix. And don't forget the caliber of weapons being used to prosecute that war. The writers go like this: calls for tighter border security, tasks regional force to end terrorism, military expresses commitment to operations. Nigeria spends over $209 million to MNJTF in 6 years. Hearing, the Secretary of a Commission speaking about that. It was good to hear, seeing that Nigeria at least meets its obligations and Nigeria is quite at least big on ensuring that we have some sort of coordination.
This is really unsettling. Here we are battling the proliferation of small arms and light weapons,
right,
and the concern about the war against insurgency being difficult because weapons are being smuggled in from the borders of Nigeria with other countries, particularly to that Lake Chad region, and all of the countries, Niger, Cameroon. Only for we to have this now, it's really
the scale of it,
disconcerting.
Really.
And security operatives should look into this.
They should, clearly.
Our borders are porous, and these are some of the issues,
And I think that's the main point.
Yeah, that's the main point.
Just one more story for you. This has been trending for quite some time. Protests over arrest of student who criticized Aisha Buhari. So it's turning into a big one, really, and it's important for the security agencies, those who are responsible or not, to come out and speak to their role or otherwise. It's a very, very important one. So that's it for the Daily Trust newspaper. Back to you guys.
2023, Atiku's presidency violates power-sharing arrangement ascribed to Afenifere, backs G5 governors on Ayu. Wike Rivers will soon announce presidential candidates to vote. Whoa, okay. It's going to be a big announcement, I guess. So maybe one of those live events that you may just hear it. So Rivers will soon announce presidential candidates to vote.
Oh. Okay.
So when you hear this, it suggests, on the contrary, that it may not be the party's flag bearer.
Okay.
Because if they were to say this, you'll think, well, everybody, naturally you'll think that
Is it Rivers PDP or Rivers APC?
Well, that's coming from the governor, so it may be Rivers PDP, most likely. Because I can't be speaking for APC clearly. Nigeria needs competent leaders to address its challenges. Abakova, PDP alleges plots to disrupt Ondo rally. Gunmen kill LP woman leader in southern Kaduna. So the police need to respond real quick to this one, because that is key to what happens moving forward. You know what they say about how many hours after a crime? Those 48 hours or 24 hours is very, very crucial. And then at the bottom strip, you see something about COVID-19. Core members to be certified by NCDC before gaining access to camps. That's ascribed to NYSC. Did they have it? Okay, they still have someone in acting capacity, though. So, there you go. That is New Telegraph this morning.
Well, take a look at Daily Independent with this story. I think we already saw something like this earlier. Russia-Ukraine war compounding Boko Haram crisis, attributed to the president. Buhari says despite success by troops, terrorist threats still persist. Military actions alone cannot win the war against terrorism. That is also there. We won't be cowed by arsonists on democratic elements. That's according to INEC. Says commission determined to make 2023 polls best ever. Police tear gas dispersed protesters demanding CJN's resignation. And yes, that story is also re-emphasized here. We'll soon decide presidential candidates Rivers will vote for, attributed to Governor Wike. Let's leave it there for Daily Independent.
And let's go to this Nigeria from there, and it leads with, the 2023 elections. Next president must be physically, mentally fit, say Catholic Knights. Well, everyone is interested in the election, and the riders go this way. Urge Nigerians to vote for someone with character, competence, professionalism, and capacity. Those 3 C's keep, reoccurring in the conversation. But what do they really mean? We're going to be having a conversation on that this morning, and of course we'll find out more. And look at this one. INEC can reprint burnt PVCs in 2 days. That's according to the INEC boss. And of course we heard that earlier on the program yesterday from a former rec, Mr. Guinea. And lastly, as we exit this Nigeria, this one, police react as court remands IGP Baba in prison for contempt. Of course, he's been sentenced, but has he been remanded yet? I think we need to do a check on that, just to be sure.
It's probably somewhere preparing for work this morning, maybe. But take a look at Nigeria News Direct. Picks up from there, actually. It says, contempt court fires again, convicts IGP to 3 months imprisonment. Quite interesting the way News Direct captions, but you see it's a conviction. I'm not aware of any court order MPF directs legal unit to swing into action. I mean, that's something you find across all the front pages. I just take this one more for you. And, it hit me as though, where did this come from? We're not introducing 5,000 Naira notes, CBN. So, I didn't hear that before. I didn't even know there was any rumor like that. But in case there was, deaden it, as they say. No, I even imagine what that would look like, 5,000 Naira note.
Doesn't sound good at all.
It doesn't, right? It doesn't. A couple of more stories on the front page, but we'll leave it there for Nigeria News Direct. It's back to you guys.
I thought they say ignorance of the law is not an excuse. I don't know, but I wonder. I just wonder. But it gets interesting these days with some of these matters. Is this law enforceable?
Who's going to enforce it? I think that's the key question. Oh, well, you have the prison officials. So when you say, commit the IGP to prison, so they will come and what? They will take the IGP? And police officers will be looking at them in this country?
Because, if that is the narrative that they were not aware, I don't know if that stands. If I were, a regular citizen was sentenced, and he says, look, I was not aware of these things. Would it suffice?
I want to believe that by this morning, the lawyers and the police, as they did not start yesterday, filing an appeal or a stay, because really we cannot continue like a jungle country. If the courts have said reinstate somebody and the person has gone to court to legally seek redress, it is incumbent upon us to ensure that that order of court, unless it is appealed, is carried out. Now, if the person has gone back to court to say, what it is that you ordered has not been enforced, the court says, look, it is also, how can you not carry out our orders, commit the IGP to prison? We have to enforce those kinds of things because these are the kinds of small things. Unless, of course, we put a stay or, you seek, I don't know, is it the vacation of the judgment? I don't know, whatever it is that lawyers do. Unless they legally find a way around it, we're not a banana republic. What our courts say, must be carried out.
Because not even the office of the president is above the law.
No.
Unless they're telling us that the law is a respecter of persons or offices, we stand corrected. I'd like to know what you think. Of course, we always like to. We will be back in just a moment. Join us again.
At every election circle, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, carries out massive voter registration to enable eligible citizens participate in the general elections. As in previous elections, the 2022 electoral law also provides that INEC carries out voter registration and cleanup for the forthcoming elections. The massive mobilization and turnout of citizens for registration also came with its challenges, as INEC announced in September that over 1.1 million people were delisted from the voter register, owing to some irregularities such as underage and double registration. That preliminary cleanup by INEC was followed by public reactions to some of the discoveries in the register.
What we have done is to subject the preliminary register of voters to Nigerians so that Nigerians can also help the commission clean up the voters register further. So many Nigerians are visiting our website and also making their claims and also raising objections on the website. All these things will be brought back to the commission for the commission to have a final say in relation to what has been done and in relation to what has not been done.
However, there are restrictions in the process of reporting irregularities in the voter register.
If you make an objection on an underage and a non-Nigerian or multiple registrants, first you need to provide proof of claim. And there are documents like birth certificates, like national ID, as well as death certificates. For heaven's sake, someone's making that kind of objection. Where is the person going to obtain that claim from?
That process is not very easy. It's not even clearly defined. The electorate, the voters, don't really know how the procedure, they don't know the procedure to follow to be able to make that claim. And I think that is one area that needs to be revisited.
Political parties and civil society organizations agree on the need to reform the voter register cleanup process.
The concern that have been expressed by people, and I think INEC, being a responsible body that has demonstrated capacity and willingness to deliver a credible election in 2023 and beyond, must revisit that.
This is an opportunity for reforms in the next electoral reform process, that we have to rejig this entire process.
There are currently over 93.5 million registered voters for the 2023 general elections in Nigeria. However, to ensure that only eligible voters make their way into the country's voter register in all future elections, more definitely needs to be done with the cleanup process.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, as you've seen there, Nicholas Felix joins us next. He did vie for the APC's presidential ticket. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, that report we just played, the largest chunk of those eligible voters happen to be young people between the ages of 18 and 34. And they have a major say. They're expected to have a major say in the elections. It depends on how and who turns up. You never can tell until the day. The figures are one thing, then on the actual day, it's a separate thing entirely. But you've been holding meetings of other, presidential aspirants with a view to rallying them and getting them to form a position. What is the essence of that, though?
Yeah, the essence of the meeting is to get former candidates and aspirants, first of all, not to retreat, because the last time I was here, I remember mentioning that a lot of the candidates and aspirants who were vying for the post, the office of the president in 2019, many are nowhere to be found this time around, maybe partly because of the registration of some of the political parties. And I believe what we started in 2019 should not die. A lot of the youths were highly involved in 2019 election. And I also believe one of the reasons we had less violence in 2019 election was because of the youth participation. A lot of these youths who rallied around us, over 40 young candidates were there and aspirants. They saw hope. They saw, their interests being represented. Now that 2023 is like we had less of them, we're trying to get back on board, you know, to rally around a candidate at the end of the day, where youth will be on board. Now, we have a lot of youth.
To rally around a candidate?
Yes, the idea is at the end of the day, we are not on the ballot, but at the end of the day, after the election is over, when youth have voted, we don't want to be left aside. You know, like I said on the day of the primary election, the only title they give us and the only offices they give us is SA to SA to SA.
Yep.
We're tired of being SA. So what we are doing now is we're coming together, APC, and from the APC we have PDP, we have Labour Party, all other parties. As far as you contested or you were an aspirant or candidate in 2019 and 2023, we are discussing.
Okay.
Where do we go from here?
If you say to rally around a candidate,
yes.
At what point? Well, if it's a candidate, if you rally around one candidate and the candidate loses, what does that mean?
That's the point. That's why we are not deciding now. We're even nowhere near where we are deciding who the candidate is. First of all, we are setting up structures. We are discussing. To my greatest surprise, the first meeting we had, I thought it was going to be a lot of work, like what happened to the part. I thought we were going to fall apart in our discussion. To my greatest surprise, we all had one voice. Even before I presented the agenda, everybody was speaking up and said, this is what we should do. I felt like, wow, this is going to be quite easy for us. So now what we're doing, we're putting our self-interest aside. We're putting our political party interest aside, saying, let's analyze what is going on. First of all, who is the candidate that is going to make sure youth have a voice? We want to see youth ministers. We want to see youth as head of parastatals. These are the things we are looking for, not just using us to vote for you. 61% of the eligible voters are going to vote, and they are all youth. At the end of the day, we are set aside. Even the youth minister of youth is going to be an elderly man. We don't want that.
What is the yardstick to determine this person who has a youth program?
First of all, we want to see the friendliness of this candidate, not what you're telling us of this candidate.
That's objective.
No, okay. What is your antecedents? In the past, what did you do with the youth? Some of the candidates of the governors, when you were a governor, what did you do with the youth? Was there anybody, youth in your cabinet? That's number one. All this while you're no longer a candidate, how many youths have you empowered? What have you been doing with the youth? Not just what you're telling us now, I'm going to give you this, because these are politicians. They're going to say everything they want to say. 50% is going to be youth.
But you're politicians too.
I don't consider myself the politicians that you are used to. I'm a different kind of politician. I say the truth and what I think is obtainable. So they're going to tell us this. We don't want to be carried away by this. We want to know, when you were a governor, what did you do? Or when you were vice president, whatever position you had before. And now all this while, what have you been doing? How are you riding around you? That's the things we're going to look at. And most importantly, who is going to win this election?
So
okay. It's a discussion. We've not gotten there yet, but we are getting there.
You know, only recently I had cause to have a conversation around this. It was with the former governor of Akwa Ibom State. And we're talking about, he has a new group, but there have been a number of former governors, so I have to be very specific about which of the governors now. Anyways, he now has a new group. It's called the Compatriots, I think. Obong. Victor Atta. And he was telling me, I was saying, oh, do you have young people on board? What he's looking for is unity. And he was saying, you know, I need to be a little more specific in terms of what I mean by young people. And he talked about when he was governor. When he was governor in 1999, there were a lot of other governors. He was rather, will I say, on the older side. There were younger governors. Donald Duke of Cross River State was one of them. And a number of other governors who were young. There were others in his own age range. And he said that, look, what he finds interesting and what he thinks that a focus should be on should be about ideas, not about age. And I don't know whether that is also coming on board, because it says if you also look at how student union groups are conducting themselves these days, you have to ask questions as to whether or not, you know, there's really anything different in terms of what the older people are doing and what young people are doing. So are you making this distinction, or is your association just based on because we're young, because we're in a certain age grade, that should be sufficient for us to, you know, have the same sort of ideas? What if you have people who are in your group and who are still thinking like, you know, the older folks? What difference is that going to make to you?
Of course, that's where the orientation comes in. And that's why we spend hours discussing this. Now, we do understand that it's going to be issues of ideas. And we don't want to be carried away with just ideas. And now, as young people, we are set aside. That has been what has been going on in this nation, where now they think we don't have no ideas. We are saying we're young, we have ideas. Now, let's make it clear. If you look at even our President Muhammadu Buhari, Nigerians wanted him so bad because they felt when he was minister, when he was head of state, he did so well. If we are agreeing that these guys did well when they were in office, let's look at why they did well.
Is it all young people who have ideas?
Not all young people. Of course, we are not saying every young man out there, should get into office, but some of us came out, we contested. Some of us came out, we threw our heart in the race. Are you aware that some young candidates sold their property? I had one telling me he sold 2 of his properties just to get in the race. Some loaned money. It's one of the reasons you don't want to see many of them out there. Many people got hurt as young candidates. I believe it's the passion and the love they have for this nation.
Do you think that people should sell? If I hear that somebody is selling property to join a race, I will be concerned.
Of course. I mean, I wouldn't advise that. I wouldn't even advise you loaning money. But I'm just saying they had passion. They had love for our dear country, and that's why they went into the race. Now, I think it's something for us to
Is that how you're reading it? I'm reading it a little differently.
Yes, you may read it differently, but I think the deed is done. I wouldn't want to pull him down already. They're already feeling the hurt. My job now is to, as far as Proverbs 27:17, sharpen them, encourage them not to give up. There are many of them who don't even want to join anything. They are out of politics.
But we also need to make sure that people don't make the same mistakes. That's why you're highlighting this.
Yes, and that's why we're coming together as youth to, at the end of this is what we make somebody like me very happy. When we youth infiltrate the system. For example, Clement Jimbo was one of the aspirants in 2019. Even though he couldn't get the ticket in his party to becoming a candidate, we spoke. He joined the APC. Now he's running for House of Rep in his constituency, and he won the ticket. I'll be so glad to see him as representing his constituency. We have younger people who, they are trying to get on board. Our job is to encourage them. Time comes where we have to forget about it. For example, in 2008, the first person I ever voted for as a person was Obama. I didn't care what Obama was, whatever idea he had. What I was concerned about is he's a black man. This is going to be the first black president. Forget whether you have anything to offer. I voted for him because he was black. A time comes where we are saying, get us on board. We have something to bring aboard.
But some people say that's voting on emotion. And yes, and you cannot discountenance the power of emotions in politics. It's really very strong, and it is one of the things that fuels the passion that people feel. But, from what we have seen, after emotion dies, then we now begin to look at capacity, whether or not, when stark reality hits, we now begin to, vet whether or not the person even knows what that office is about, whether or not the person has had the prerequisite, what they call experience. Because there's a reason why when you apply for a job, the employers look to see your CV. They want to see whether your resume fits the position which you're applying for. Are you able to say, even though we are supporting young people, there needs to be a place where capacity is built, that we must see a track record of capacity being built over the years before we can say, this is the kind of young person that we can vouch for?
Yes, I mean, that's left now for the candidate to decide.
For which candidates?
I'm saying, okay, whoever becomes the president, the point we are trying to make now is we're not even represented on the table. The idea of we don't have ideas, I went to a strange land.
Which of the tables?
And I built, when I made table, I want to see in the administration, not during the election. What we're doing now is beyond just the election. We want to be relevant after the election is over. Apparently, the only time the youth is during the election. So what we are fighting for is when 2023 election is over, we want to see youths, start getting into the space, start doing something. For example, including the women. When I heard Adamawa State, the APC candidate, gubernatorial candidate is a lady, I was excited. The world is moving on. We have to follow the trend. Youth, we have capacity. You won't know what we can bring aboard if we don't get on board. Some of us have done great in our young life. Build ministries, plant churches all over the world. I've traveled to about 18 countries building churches. I have businesses over 140-something employees. I've built a multi-million-dollar company in America at a very young age. If I can do that in the private sector, politics is the easiest with what I've seen. running a ministry and running a business. We have done that in our young age. But if you don't put us on board, if we don't come on board, you will know exactly what we can do. Now, this idea of always saying, what have you done before? What have you done before? Has it occurred to you that every pilot that flies, there was a day they flew the plane after they graduated? They don't come to announce to us, today is my first day flying, and nobody will fly the plane. But they give them, the company, the airline give them the privilege. They go on board, and they land us. After a while, they start telling us, I've had 200,000 miles to my, but you started one day. So we are saying, get us on board. And that's where leadership and tutorage come in. If the leaders don't prepare the future for us and prepare us for the future, there's going to be disaster. So get us on board, tutor us, but don't just put us aside. That's what we're trying to say.
When you keep saying, get us on board, I mean, you've spoken about what you've done in different countries. Nobody got you on board. You went and you took it. You made those things happen. You didn't wait for anything to drop on your laps. Yes. So why is this one different?
No, okay, it's different because the political space here is quite different. Number one, for you to win some level of election, especially at the federal level, you and I know it takes a whole lot of resources. So if we can't be elected at some level, you can appoint us. So we're pushing for election. That's why I sampled those who are, we have a 45-year-old young guy in Edo, Dr. Valentine. He won the ticket for APC as the Edo senatorial candidate in the South. He's 45, he's going for the election. We have Elvis who won another primary. So there are you. We're putting our self-interest aside. We're putting our political party interest aside, saying, let's analyze what is going on. First of all, who is the candidate that is going to make sure youth have a voice? We want to see youth ministers. We want to see youth as head of parastatals. These are the things we are looking for, not just using us to vote for you. 61% of the eligible voters are going to vote, and they are all youth. At the end of the day, we are set aside. Even the youth minister of youth is going to be an elderly man. We don't want that.
What is the yardstick to determine this person who has a youth program?
First of all, we want to see the friendliness of this candidate, not what you're telling us of this candidate.
That's objective.
No, okay. What is your antecedents? In the past, what did you do with the youth? Some of the candidates of the governors, when you were a governor, what did you do with the youth? Was there anybody, youth in your cabinet? That's number one. All this while you're no longer a candidate, how many youths have you empowered? What have you been doing with the youth? Not just what you're telling us now, I'm going to give you this, because these are politicians. They're going to say everything they want to say. 50% is going to be youth.
But you're politicians too.
I don't consider myself the politicians that you are used to. I'm a different kind of politician. I say the truth and what I think is obtainable. So they're going to tell us this. We don't want to be carried away by this. We want to know, when you were a governor, what did you do? Or when you were vice president, whatever position you had before. And now all this while, what have you been doing? How are you riding around you? That's the things we're going to look at. And most importantly, who is going to win this election?
So
okay. It's a discussion. We've not gotten there yet, but we are getting there.
Only recently I had cause to have a conversation around this. It was with the former governor of Akwa Ibom State. And we're talking about, he has a new group, but there have been a number of former governors, so I have to be very specific about which of the governors now. Anyways, he now has a new group. It's called the Compatriots, I think. Obong. Victor Atta. And he was telling me, I was saying, oh, do you have young people on board? What he's looking for is unity. And he was saying, I need to be a little more specific in terms of what I mean by young people. And he talked about when he was governor. When he was governor in 1999, there were a lot of other governors. He was rather, will I say, on the older side. There were younger governors. Donald Duke of Cross River State was one of them. And a number of other governors who were young. There were others in his own age range. And he said that, look, what he finds interesting and what he thinks that a focus should be on should be about ideas, not about age. And I don't know whether that is also coming on board, because it says if you also look at how student union groups are conducting themselves these days, you have to ask questions as to whether or not there's really anything different in terms of what the older people are doing and what young people are doing. So are you making this distinction, or is your association just based on because we're young, because we're in a certain age grade, that should be sufficient for us to, have the same sort of ideas? What if you have people who are in your group and who are still thinking like, you know, the older folks, what difference is that going to make to you?
Of course, that's where the orientation comes in, and that's why we spend hours discussing this. Now, we do understand that it's going to be issues of ideas, and we don't want to be carried away with just ideas, and now, as young people, we are set aside. That has been what has been going on in this nation, where now they think we don't have no ideas. We are saying we're young, we have ideas. Now, let's make it clear. If you look at even our President Muhammadu Buhari, Nigerians wanted him so bad because they felt when he was minister, when he was head of state, he did so well. If we are agreeing that these guys did well when they were in office, let's look at why they did well.
Is it all young people who have ideas?
Not all young people. Of course, we are not saying every young man out there, you know, should get into office, but some of us came out, we contested. Some of us came out, we threw our heart in the race. Are you aware that some young candidates sold their property? I had one telling me he sold 2 of his properties just to get in the race. Some loaned money. It's one of the reasons you don't want to see many of them out there. Many people got hurt as young candidates. I believe it's the passion and the love they have for this nation.
Do you think that people should sell? If I hear that somebody is selling property to join a race, I will be concerned.
Of course. I mean, I wouldn't advise that. I wouldn't even advise you loaning money. But I'm just saying they had passion. They had love for our dear country, and that's why they went into the race. Now, I think it's something for us to
Is that how you're reading it? I'm reading it a little differently.
Yes, you may read it differently, but I think the deed is done. I wouldn't want to pull him down already. They're already feeling the hurt. My job now is to, as far as Proverbs 27:17, sharpen them, encourage them not to give up. There are many of them who don't even want to join anything. They are out of politics.
But we also need to make sure that people don't make the same mistakes. That's why you're highlighting this.
Yes, and that's why we're coming together as youth to, you know, at the end of this is what we make somebody like me very happy. When we youth infiltrate the system. For example, Clement Jimbo was one of the aspirants in 2019. Even though he couldn't get the ticket in his party to becoming a candidate, we spoke. He joined the APC. Now he's running for House of Rep in his constituency, and he won the ticket. I'll be so glad to see him as representing his constituency. We have younger people who, you know, they are trying to get on board. Our job is to encourage them. Time comes where we have to forget about it. For example, in 2008, the first person I ever voted for as a person was Obama. I didn't care what Obama was, whatever idea he had. What I was concerned about is he's a black man. This is going to be the first black president. Forget whether you have anything to offer. I voted for him because he was black. A time comes where we are saying, get us on board. We have something to bring aboard.
But some people say that's voting on emotion. And yes, and you cannot discountenance the power of emotions in politics. It's really very strong, and it is one of the things that fuels the passion that people feel. But, you know, from what we have seen, after emotion dies, then we now begin to look at capacity, whether or not, when stark reality hits, we now begin to, you know, vet whether or not the person even knows what that office is about, whether or not the person has had the prerequisite, what they call the experience. Because there's a reason why when you apply for a job, the employers look to see your CV. They want to see whether your resume fits the position which you're applying for. Are you able to say, you know what, even though we're supporting young people, there needs to be a place where capacity is built, that we must see a track record of capacity being built over the years before we can say, this is the kind of young person that we can vouch for?
Yes, I mean, that's left now for the candidate to decide.
For which candidates?
I'm saying, okay, whoever becomes the president, the point we are trying to make now is we're not even represented on the table. The idea of we don't have ideas, I went to a strange land.
Which of the tables?
And I built, when I made table, I want to see in the administration, not during the election. What we're doing now is beyond just the election. We want to be relevant after the election is over. Apparently, the only time the youth is during the election. So what we are fighting for is when 2023 election is over, we want to see youth, you know, start getting into the space, start doing something. For example, including the women. When I heard Adamawa State, the APC candidate, gubernatorial candidate is a lady, I was excited. The world is moving on. We have to follow the trend. Youth, we have capacity. You won't know what we can bring on board if we don't get on board. Some of us have done great in our young life. Build ministries, plant churches all over the world. I've traveled to about 18 countries building churches. I have businesses, over 140-something employees. I've built a multi-million-dollar company in America at a very young age. If I can do that in the private sector, politics is the easiest with what I've seen. Running a ministry and running a business, we have done that in our young age. But if you don't put us on board, if we don't come on board, you will know exactly what we can do. Now, this idea of always saying, what have you done before? What have you done before? Has it occurred to you that every pilot that flies, there was a day they flew the plane after they graduated? They don't come to announce to us, today is my first day flying, and nobody will fly the plane. But they give them, the company, the airline give them the privilege. They go on board, and they land us. After a while, they start telling us, I've had 200,000 miles to my, but you started one day. So we are saying, get us on board. And that's where leadership and tutorage come in. If the leaders don't prepare the future for us and prepare us for the future, there's going to be disaster. So get us on board, tutor us, but don't just put us aside. That's what we're trying to say. When you keep saying, get us on board, I mean, you've spoken about what you've done in different countries. Nobody got you on board. You went and you took it. You made those things happen. You didn't wait for anything to drop on your laps. Yes. So why is this one different? No, okay, it's different because the political space here is quite different. Number one, for you to win some level of election, especially at the federal level, you and I know it takes a whole lot of resources. So if we can't be elected at some level, you can appoint us. So we're pushing for election. That's why I sampled those who are, we have a 45-year-old young guy in Edo, Dr. Valentine. He won the ticket for APC as the Edo senatorial candidate in the South. He's 45, he's going for the election. We have Elvis, who won another primary. So there are youth also, he's 43 years old. Clement is 40 years old. They are fighting for election. They are going to be elected. While we are doing that, we're also saying, appoint us also. That's just what we're saying. We're not here as rebels to push our leaders. We're not saying we hate them. We are saying we have something to offer. You see, one thing Nigerians must start doing, I went to a store in New York. I saw a pizza store. They were giving out free pizza, buy one, get one free. What were they celebrating? 100 years of that business in existence. Ordinary pizza, Italian man, 100 years. In Nigeria, we don't have companies who last 50 years. Same thing is happening in our political space. Where is Bata, the famous shoe in those days in the 80s? There are no companies that last 50 years in Nigeria because why? Our leaders don't know how to hand over the baton. Some of them will even take it to their grave. We are saying, we are here, let us come on board so that as you guys are retiring, train us so that you will have a Nigeria to enjoy. First Bank will disagree with you. You've been here for 125 years. That's one bank. But there are so many companies that and the ordinary hair salon will be there for 50 years in this country. But Nigerians, they are not there. They fall away. Let's bring in our colleagues in Lagos.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Indeed, a lot of companies, the formal and informal ones, will disagree with you on that one. But help us understand this, because really, you said that politics is easy, right? Because if you've succeeded in the private sector, you can do politics easily. But you also said in the same breath that winning elections in Nigeria is very, very hard, and all of that. So help us understand this, really. You were schemed out, it would seem, young people, in spite of your large demography. Same for women, even worse for women. Women make up half of the population, but in governance, they're even fighting for 10%, talk more of the affirmative action. So help us understand what exactly, I don't want to say easy now, because you also said it's difficult. What makes it difficult for young people to be a part? I'm still going to get to what you're proposing, but I just want to have a sense of maybe what you people decided within yourself, that what is that big hurdle to us being a part? Because you have the numbers, really, and it only makes sense. Democracy is about numbers. If you have the numbers, you should have the representation.
Yeah, let me clarify this more. When I use the word is easy, I'm comparing it to being a pastor. Being a pastor is the easiest job, in my opinion. Somebody else can disagree. Apart from being a mother, raising kids, being a pastor is one of the most difficult jobs on earth. So pastoring people, the expectation is high. You have to be perfect. You can't make mistakes. So that's what I'm comparing it to. I started being a pastor at the age of 22. I'm 41 now. So when I compare it with politics, I see a big difference. So that's why I'm saying, it's a little bit much more easier in politics. Now, What we are asking for, again, is just to have the youth on board. Our discussion went very well. We agreed that at the end of the day, we're going to have a candidate. Not now, it's maybe to January, we have to all agree. Nobody is infusing any candidates. We're all from different political parties. But our interest is to make sure that the youth voice are heard. That's all what this is all about. I'm the Deputy National Youth Coordinator of the APC. I have my candidates. We have those from Labour Party. We have those from PDP, NUP, and even current presidential candidates are with us. But at the end of the day, we have one interest. We don't want youth to be used. We don't want to be dumped. We want to have the voice after the 2023 general election.
Pardon me to come in. My question particularly, I mean, look at the young people in that visuals. Lots of them, mostly young people. My question is, what exactly is the hurdle? I imagine that you must have done some sort of preliminary findings. Is it lack of money? Because these things are said time and again, but I really want us to take a hold of it. Is it lack of funds? Is it lack of structure? Is it lack of ideas? Is it the fact that even the young people are not taking it, as Chamberlain said, because nobody will give it to you? What exactly is that big hurdle that is stopping young people from transitioning from that huge number they have to really the proper representation on that table, which you alluded to earlier?
We don't lack ideas as young people. Our issue is money. I remember in 2019, we had several meetings. This may be embarrassing to say, where we couldn't even afford the hotel we were using for the meeting. It was so embarrassing that we had to quickly just raise money and pay for it. So we've always encountered hindrances, hurdles, because when it gets to where ideas are about to be hashed, no resources to fund them. For example, we have a mega youth summit coming up where we are going to invite some of the candidates. We're going to question. It's going to cost us millions of naira to do this. When it gets to that place and you're asking all the aspirant and candidates to come and bring money, it becomes an issue. Because one of the things we said we're not going to do is to meet any candidate and sort for money. Nobody can buy us or bribe us or try to infiltrate for us to gravitate towards them. We're not going to do that. I made it very clear on the first day. But when it comes to now where we need a lot of resources to do this, it becomes an issue. That's why some of us have decided at the start to fund this alone, so that we don't face that hurdle. The problem has been money. It costs billions of naira. Even to run for governor in any state, it costs billions of naira. So these are some of the challenges. And sometimes the youth don't even make it easy on us. Some of these youth see us on the street. They expect exactly the same thing from us. Oh, this politician is going to do this. But you know we don't have these resources. And we're here representing you, so they make it even difficult for us. They come to your event, there's no day they don't see you, give me this, give me that. The moment you say you don't have, it becomes an issue. So
yes.
Money has always
Mr.
been
Felix,
the problem. But we have to keep striving.
Mr.
We have
Felix,
to keep pushing. Yes.
Yeah. So if money is the problem, and you do so much work, you're putting a lot to get the money, why is it then that Nigerian youths, when they get ahead and, they make some sort of headway, they, begin to step down for the bigger presidential aspirants? And I'd like to, use you as a case in point. You were 37 when you contested on another platform earlier in 2019, and you made, some showing, even though not impressive. But back then in 2022, ahead of the primaries, you stepped down for another presidential aspirant. I'd like you to talk about that experience. What is it that caused you to step down? Because it's been expressed on this program by other, young people who are clamoring for participation of more of, the people like them in politics. So share with us your experience. Why did you have to step down if you did so much to get there? I imagine, what you spent on your nomination form.
Yeah, for us, like I always say, when it comes to politics, outside of the camera, outside of the rallies, when I get back with my team, we always try to be very realistic and tell ourselves the truth. During the APC, when the new bill was signed, it kind of changed the dynamics of the whole thing. Usually, the primary election are done between October and November. At this time, we had just very short time to do what we had to do, less than 30 days. And the list of the delegates were fluctuating. We didn't even know who was who. Before it came out, the access to the delegates to even go and reach them, unlike other candidates who had enough resources traveling to see these delegates, we couldn't do such. And what we did was to get the phone numbers of the delegates. We reached out to them via messages, making calls. The feedback we were getting, some of the delegates were saying, oh, we don't know you that much. We don't know you that much. When we saw that it may be difficult for us to hit this, it may be difficult for us to get this, in order for our effort not to be wasted, we said, okay, let's align with somebody we know that will always represent our interests. That's why we went that way. We didn't just want to throw all our effort down when we know exactly the time was not there, the resources were not there. And of course, we didn't just want to pull out. All our efforts will be wasted. That's why we said, okay, we may not get the entire cow. Let's do something. Let's, align with somebody we know that will represent our interests. That's why we did that.
Going forward now, this common ground for conversation with other presidential, with past presidential aspirants, should you pick a presidential candidate that is not from your party, wouldn't that be conflicting with your job as, one of the campaign managers for the All Progressives Congress?
No, it will not be conflicting because I represent my candidates. And I'm sure the person from the Labour Party is going to represent his candidate. I'm sure those from PDP are going to represent their candidate. It's left to us now to come on board and say, this is what I know about my candidate. This is what I know my candidate can do. And as a group, as a team, we'll be able to analyze it. I have a personal relationship with my candidate. I know what we have discussed. I know the promises. I know what he can do. It's left for me now to do a good job by presenting my candidate. It's left for everybody now on the table to do a good job and present their candidate. At the end of the day, we're going to vote. Nothing has been imposed. The few decisions we have made so far, it has all been voting. And like I said, to my greatest surprise, sometimes it's 9 people to 1. We've been speaking one voice. And I know it's going to be a very successful one at the end of the day.
And time is of the essence, Mr. Felix. Beyond the conversation, what is the template that you're presenting, for the presidential candidate that you eventually pick, for appointive positions? Because you say that you want to stay around. So what is the template that you'll be presenting to the presidential candidate that you will pick? And how are you committing them to implement it when they become, when they emerge victorious in 2023?
As a matter of fact, yesterday we had that discussion. We have not finalized yet. Suggestions are coming up. Some of the aspirants want the candidate to sign. And to me, politicians can sign anything. They can say anything. We want beyond just signing. We want commitment beyond that. And we might get a few other people involved who are going to ensure that these politicians, they do exactly what they say. So we have not finalized on that yet. Several meetings. We have another meeting on Zoom this week. It's a whole lot of discussion for us to get to exactly where we are. But the good thing is we have started, and we hope at the end of the day, something good comes out of this, because it will be a wasteful exercise and resources if all this just goes unnoticed.
So what you've said that you don't want essay to essay to essay. What are the roles you're eyeing specifically now? I mean, we know the presidential, the vice presidential are taken, but what are the roles aside Minister for Youth and Sports, the usual one? What are the specific roles you're eyeing in government?
If you ask me, we're eyeing every post, including the seat of the president. That's why we came out.
No, that's taken already, Mr. Felix. That's already taken, except you're planning something else. Now, realistically, that is.
That's what I'm saying. I believe we can function in every capacity. I believe we have people who are good in so many areas. I jokingly even said, I would love to see Shore as the chairman of the EFCC. And I know you may never accept that, but I would love to see somebody like Kingsley Moghalu in the economic team. We have people who are specialized in different areas. So the candidate now, that's what we are saying. If you are youth-friendly, you know who is who, you understand where people can function. And if you really want to get the youth on board, we don't need to demand and tell you must make me Minister of Petroleum. You know exactly what to do, and that's what we're going to be looking at. What can this candidate do? What is their way of thinking? Can you see this? If I can picture that somebody like Kingsley Moghalu, who was the deputy governor in CBN, is good in the economics, we can get you on board to join. And I think this candidate should have the eye as leaders to also see that youth, we have a lot to bring on board and be able to join in the administration.
Won't your principal be disappointed if the team don't support him as the candidate?
There's nobody that will not be disappointed. I went to the primaries. I wasn't happy when it came out, but in every election, there must be a winner. But again, like I said, We are going to bring, I'm not there to just show my principle. I'm there to represent my party. The PDP guy is there to represent his party. The Labour Party is there. So it's up to us now to come and tell us, why do you want it to be your candidate? I'm come prepared and letting them know, this is what my candidate can do. This is what he's going to do. This is what I think he has done. Everybody has to present it. At the end of the day, we are going to vote. Somebody's going to be disappointed. Who? I don't know.
What if you present another candidate other than or the team chooses another candidate other than your party's flag bearer? Wouldn't they consider you participating in that as anti-party activity?
No, they understand that this is totally different from my position. I'm fully for the APC. I'm the campaigning for the youth. But the idea here is we need somebody. Again, if I truly believe in my principle, I should be able to represent it. That's what we're doing. That's why nobody has been told not to speak about your principle. A time is coming where all of us will have to come. I want it to be Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I'm going to have to explain to the team, this is why I want it to be him. It's left to them to buy it. The other person have to explain. You have to be able to say your candidate. Unfortunately, if you can't say your candidate, it means your candidate can't do anything. Because at this level, if your candidate is really youth-friendly, you should have known by now, and you should be able to present it on board. I believe mine is youth-friendly. I have all the arsenal, I have things ready to present. Now it's left for us now as a group to vote and decide which way we are going.
So how does this work? Is it just with the former presidential aspirant or candidates, or is it themselves and their structure, as it were, if there's any such thing in this particular case? So what are they bringing to the table? Why should the parties or the candidates listen to them?
Oh, yes, we all have structure. It may not be as big as you think. During the election, many of us gather thousands of votes. As little as you think that may be, it adds to it. We are not saying we are the one person who is going to make you lose an election, but you do know every vote counts. Recently, there was an election held in America, and the candidate won by just one vote. So every vote counts. We are bringing our own on board. Every aspirant, every candidate, no matter how small you think they are, they do have people who they represent, and they do have followers. So we are saying we are bringing what we have on board, and we hope that these candidates will follow suit. And it's getting bigger. This is not, it's starting now with just former presidential aspirant. Everybody was invited. Nobody was cut out. As far as you were young, under 60, we sent an invitation. Of course, many are not going to show up.
So why is it just presidential aspirants? Why not other positions?
For now, because the election we have right now is a presidential election, we're focusing on just that. But like I said, it's going to get bigger where we're going to have almost everybody on board. The time is too short for us to do that now. Hence, we voted on that also. I wanted it to be just beyond that. But when I got there, almost everybody wanted the other way. But even though I'm the convener, I have to understand that this is a group. This is only about what I feel or what I want. So they voted that for now, let's limit it because we don't have time. We have just 2 months to do a lot. While we are campaigning, we are moving from state to state for our parties. This is just by the side. So there's not enough time to do all. Hopefully after the election, we're going to be able to come as youth all over the country and make our voice louder and bigger.
I'm just a little curious. Why should they trust you? Because even though you have said it's a non-partisan arrangement for now, you obviously belong to a political party. You are Deputy Youth Coordinator for the presidential campaign. I mean, what if this is just about, some long-term strategy, not just for now, for maybe much later, but also even for now? Why should the other participants in this group of yours trust you?
Like I said, they did. As a matter of fact, when we convened it, I didn't even start as a convener. I sat with 3 other candidates and we spoke about it, we planned it. On that very first day, they voted. I didn't ask to be voted for. They voted that I should be the chairman of the group. They do trust me because I brought some ideas that they thought, no, let's go this way. And there was no argument. I went there. So in terms of the trust, somebody have to be trusted. My interest is pure towards this. I have no personal interest, and my interest is not just my party, but I'm saying all of us have to bring our candidates. You have to represent your candidate. If you cannot represent your candidates on the day of we're going to be voting, it means you have a lot of work to also do, because if we are telling your candidate to consider you, you need to be able to come on board and tell us what your candidate is going to do. And you have enough time. If you need to meet with your candidate now, let him know, hey, I'm going to be voting for you. I'm going to be doing this. I need to know more. You have the time now to do this. I have already done that. Even before accepting the position of the youth, I had to make sure this person is going to represent the youth, not just APC youth when you become the president. I have to make sure this person is somebody we can talk to. joining people is not, or supporting a candidate, it's not a big deal for me. Like I said, I don't have to be here. If I quit politics today, and I'm not going to lose, but we are here to serve, like our national items say. We are here as youth, we have strength, we have love, we have faith to serve our father's land. That's what this job is all about. So all of them should be able to present their candidates where I'm going to present my candidate. I'm going to explain from day one why my candidate is the best for this job. And at the end of the day, we also have to look who stand the chance of winning. We have 2 other younger candidates. I'm sure they're going to want us to support them as younger candidates. If I was a candidate, I'm sure I would have wanted them to support me. Then, like I said, we have to be realistic. We have to tell ourselves the truth. Hey, my brother, we love you. We cheer you up in this game, but you and I know you're not winning this election.
Yeah, well, why are you not looking also at younger candidates who have the potential to win, especially in other maybe positions at the subnational level, to see how you can also push them forward?
We're doing that. That's why I mentioned some names. I even wrote them out. We're doing that. Even financially, we're supporting. We're doing that. So this is not just at the presidential level. Some of these are not even in my state. Elvis is in my local government. I went to support him in his campaign, sponsor it. Valentine is running as a senator. I told him, when else you have a rally, come. I will sponsor myself and come. So we're doing that. Clement is one person I am ruling for. We're supporting even financially. So say, we want you to win. So this is not just at the national level. The little we can, remember, we're just building this up. The little we can is to make sure we support all our candidates. They don't have to all be in our party. As far as you are young, you have passion, and we believe you can do something, we support you. And one thing we're also making sure, let me just throw this in, is it is common for youths to get into office, whether elected or appointed, and they forget why they are there. We will be the first person to rebel against you. As a youth, whether you are appointed or you are elected, and you get there and you start misbehaving, stealing government fund, not doing the reason, we'll come back on this same station and rebel against you and want you out, because it's going to defeat the purpose why we are doing this. It's going to make us look bad, and for those who are coming behind us, very soon some of us are going to be in our 50s and 60s, and the youth can no longer have a voice. So every youth out there, you get into office, you know the reason why you are there. Represent the youth, don't make us look back. The moment we hear that you are doing otherwise, we're going to rebel against you and kick you out.
Let's wind down with this one. Are you planning to start, with an example, for instance, speaking up against anyone who is associated or perpetuates any form of electoral violence against any group whatsoever, insisting that the authorities must go after those people, no matter whose ox is God, for instance?
No election, the life of any Nigerian does not worth it. Hearing that the women leader of Labour Party in Kaduna got killed, that breaks my heart. We shouldn't die because of an election. That's why I said 2019 was such a good one, because a lot of youth were represented. When you give youth something to do, they don't go into violence. So it doesn't matter which party who is saying that. I'm not going to die for an election. The victory that is coming, the success, the greatness we're seeing in Nigeria, I believe each and every one of us want to be here to see it. So we don't encourage violence, and nobody should. And we will definitely kick against any form of violence, because at the end of the day, the youth suffers more. They're the ones who are sent as thugs and they get killed. We don't want that.
All right, Mr. Nicholas Felix is a former presidential aspirant for the APC. He's also Deputy National Youth Coordinator for the Tinubu Shetima Campaign Organization. Thank you for coming on, and all the best.
Thank you very much.
All right, welcome back. Yes, as you can see, the youths have got the floor today on the program. On my far right, Austin Okai, who is the National Coordinator, PDP National Youth Frontier. He is also the House of Reps candidate for the Kena-Bassa Federal Constituency for Kogi State. And then sitting right beside him is Issa Abubakar, who is the Director of Youth Affairs, Obi Dati Presidential Campaign Council. And then on my immediate right is Aliyu Aldu, the National Youth Spokesperson, Tinubu Shetima Campaign Council. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Nigerians.
Well. So we know from the figures out there, from what the INEC has in terms of those who are expected to make a big splash, a big say in who is where, are young people. Yes, we know the narrative, they're the leaders of tomorrow, so a lot of focus will be on young people for these elections and perhaps moving forward. So I'll start from you, Mr. Okai, as much as you're also vying, but what are your expectations in terms of how youth participation should be and then what young people, the kind of role they're expected to play in these elections?
Thank you for having me. The YAGA statistic as ruled out in the 1999 general and 2019 election say that 66% of the voters were all youth, within the age of youth. But what do we stand to benefit after participating in an election? Also, the recent indices by INEC that majorities of those, the new voters who rush into various polling for PVCs were all within the age of the youth. That is to say, we have the say, we are the one to decide who becomes the president. We have the power in our hands now to decide who should be the next governor, and now we have the power in our hand to decide who goes to the National Assembly on various political parties as a youth. But the problem is, are we aware of that? And now that call for awakening, awareness, and re-awareness, which is expected of the Minister of the Youth, the Independent National Electoral Commissions, and other civil society organizations to engage youth in encourage the participation, youth participation in the forthcoming election. But that is lacking. Even the candidates engaging youth in a town hall meeting, I think it's only the PDP presidential candidate that engaged the party, the youth, and these youth were also all just selected.
Only what, the PDP
presidential candidate? I've seen him
engage the youth.
And he's always even selected from within the party itself.
Oh, so you haven't seen that of the
The
Labour
National
Party,
Youth Council,
APC or NMPP?
I haven't. The Student Union Government, the other youth organs of the party have not been, of the country, have not been engaged in to seal an agreement or to engage in among these presidential candidates. What do we stand to benefit?
All right, they'll speak for themselves on that, regard. But Issa, what's your perspective on this matter?
I think one of the beautiful things that is about to happen in this country is the awakening of young persons to realize that they have everything it takes to produce the next president, and as well to decide what happened in their country is one of those beautiful things that I would say will happen in 2023 general election. And that is why you see my presidential candidate in person of Peter Obi see the youthfulness in me and say I should come and direct the affair of young persons for him in the country. It is a sign that without even going too far, he is willing to work with young persons irrespective of where you come from or who you are. He don't really want to know. In as much as you're a young person, you are competent, you can deliver. I think he's the only presidential candidate that have that willingness to drive that for young persons. So we are very, very much hopeful that with him as president, this agitation of youth participation in politics and what the view will be a thing of the past, because he have no option. He have no people around him other than young persons to work with. And then you can even see that from his campaign train, where you hardly see a former governor with him or a former minister with him. You see, it is we, the youth, that drive.
Does seeing a former minister or former governor invalid mean that you don't have youth working with them?
Oh, absolutely. It shows that these are the kind of faces that we're still going to see in the next government. You understand? But it is something that we are driving ourselves. We organize these rallies ourselves without his intervention.
Well, so how does your party rank in the youth participation and youths having a sense of belonging with whatever else they do?
I think it's pretty clear that the only party who's got the that has really provided a platform for young people to develop themselves is the APC. And I say this because we didn't wait until presidential election to start doing all of this. You are aware for a lot of months now, and more than a month, we've taken charge of our party. We've ensured we hold our leaders accountable, because when we came together as young people, as members of this party, one of the things they promised us is that they want to position the country for our own good, for the good of young people. And our dream has always been to take it.
How has that worked?
It's worked so pretty well. You are aware, you were partners with us when we decided to do what we need to do to ensure that our party is being managed appropriately in line with our set.
I'm talking about in governance.
Yeah, there's been a lot of empowerment, a lot of young people being mainstream into governance, into partisan positions and within the party, and we holding our head high and running for position and taking candidate tickets and everywhere. So the presidential campaign is just another step, you know, where we are currently trying to show, we're not sitting back and waiting for them to give us. We are showing our worth, so that by our worth, we'll be able to say, from what we've done so far till date, that you can lay your hands. So these are the things we've shown what we can do. So you know where we.
By the way, what he was talking about when he said we are aware is while they were trying to ensure that the right persons become the presidential candidates, so that people don't misunderstand. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's very important that that be clarified because I just wanted him to set that straight. But, you know, I'm going to take a look at what has happened with young people in recent times in terms of how active they have been in even the different campaigns of a presidential candidate. Or let me say prior to that. In recent times, we've seen young people agitating for better governance. One of the issues that they had was with police brutality. It culminated in the NSAS campaign, became rather big. And it would seem that the APC bungled that particular agitation. A lot of people felt disenchanted with how it was handled because eventually we saw what happened. There was now a very big row. There has been no consensus between the protesters and government as to whether lives were lost. At the rally, the young people continue to insist that lives were lost. And then we also saw the chaos, the utter chaos that happened right afterwards. And even at that, it doesn't look like the police reforms that have, which they tried to put in place have now been far-reaching. There are still many incidences of police brutality still being recorded. So there were questions as to, given how your party handled the agitations of young people, and a lot of people would say they were genuine agitations. How do you appeal to them now to say that, our party, by that I mean your party, has the interest of the people, especially young people at heart, understands what their pains are, and is able to address them?
All right. As much as I don't want to delve so much into the whole NSAT saga, we were quite at the forefront, we, the APC young stakeholders, when the protest started. We came out, we identified that the concerns were genuine. And we had reached out to our government, people in positions, and had conversation with them. And we came out and we addressed the press. We spoke to our young people outside, as genuine as this is. Whatever it is you want to do, not just doing it, the way you do it matters. Because the moment you decide to assemble people and protest on, major, you must ensure that you're not infringing on other citizens' rights too. There were a lot of things that could have been done better on both sides, no doubt about that. But most importantly, as at the time it was properly coordinated, there was a good response from the government. There was commitment from the government. 5 demands were submitted, and those 5 demands were adhered to. And the truth of the matter is, we know most of those demands, apart from the one that ended the SARS, they abolished the SARS as a unit. Other ones were processes. We're going to take time. That was exactly what we said in our press conference. Let's re-strategize. The essence of the protest, like war itself, is to bring yourself to the table where we can have conversation. It's a means to an end, not an end itself. But I think the young people lost that plot. And at the time where we were supposed to come up with the most important part of the whole struggle, which was to represent ourselves with a set of leaders, we decided to say we didn't have leaders. Like we went from, I'm saying we, because as a young person, it's my constituency. Before being a party member, I'm a young Nigerian. That's a title I hold very strongly. So my point is, we wanted to resist bad governance, leadership, and the next thing we were going to say was that we're going to move from not so good leadership to no leadership. That wasn't anything progressive. That wasn't anything wise at all.
Yeah, but the bad blood as a result of that still lingers. How do you hope to get past that, to say, look, let's move beyond that, and let's take a look at what is happening with the politics?
We're having conversation with different demographics, with the young people, different groups of young people around the country. As the youth wing of the APC, we're having this conversation, looking at because part of the things we've realized is the lack of history in our environment. A lot of young people do not know the journey of Nigeria. They don't know where we're coming from. So it's very hard for you to be able to assess how much we have moved the needle. So what we are doing right now is saying, yes, we know we are not, where we ought to be. We don't have the country we desire for. But let's look back at where we're coming from. Let's be grateful for some of the things some of these old guys have been able to do. It is not us versus them. We are going to have to work with them. We have the youthfulness, we have the innovative skills, we have the energy, but we haven't lived the life they've lived. We don't have the experience. We're going to have to collaborate with these people and ensure we work together to build a nation we want. We can't do this on our own. We have to learn, then put what we can add value to it. That's exactly what we're talking to Nigerian young people, and they're listening, and we're getting good feedback as to...
I don't know where you're getting your feedback from. I mean, we'll come to that. But let me come to Mr. Okai, because a number of people will say that from what we are seeing, if we're to look at the platforms where young people tend to give their feedback, it's on social media. And if we're going to, look at that, it does look like there is a general rejection of gerontocrats. They say, no, we do not want anybody who is older. The older people have brought us to where we are. They haven't shown that they do truly have the capacity or the interest of the future of this country at heart. What conversations are you having with young people in that regard to say, no, we need the experience of the older people, or to say that, your candidate understands what it is they're talking about and that there's still a chance to be able to put structures in place for the future?
Yeah, that is why what we are doing in PDP, the People's Democratic Party, through the National Youth Frontier, we are demanding for 25%, 35% of youth affirmation. Now, what we are trying to do in demanding for affirmation is because automatically, with the cost nature of Nigeria politics, it is difficult for us to have a younger one as the presidential candidate in our own party. We are disadvantaged on that. Forget it that I'm a party man. I strongly believe that the youth are not being treated fairly across the political party, both APC, PDP, and Labour Party. No, Labour Party is not yet on board, so they are just coming up. I can't say there are policies on youth. But as it stands now, the younger generations seems to be tired of the older one, as you say, and it's obvious. Has been proven on social media. But what should we do? What we are talking to the president now, our current candidate, the presidential candidate, is let there be a policy that will have youth inclusiveness. And that is by demanding for an affirmation. And of recent, the national youth leaders of the party engaged a town hall meeting where youth of the parties were selected and engaged Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. What is our stand? What do we stand to benefit? Should we be? And part of affirmation for us, we are pushing that junior ministers should be youth. We can't have a senior man as a senior minister and a senior man as a junior minister.
Did they agree?
We are pushing for it.
But he hasn't agreed yet.
He hasn't. We haven't done, you can't agree without the paper. And I'm sure the office of the national leader will push through a paper document for him to sign. There's nothing wrong in us having a man at the age of 30 as a minister of finance. We can't just limit us to the minister of youth. And even the minister of youth are not even young. They are not young men. There's nothing wrong in having someone at the age of 35 years as a minister of women affairs. It's not wrong. We are now at the mercy, and we have the chunks of vote. We can't become a president of this country. You can't become a governor of this country. You can't become a senate without us. Youth inclusiveness, without it, we decide. I look at my age, at the age of 30-something, I'm a candidate for Federal House of Reps, and some people consider me that I have no regards for an elderly man. Why? Because I am a young one and I won the primaries, and I'm a young one. I'm contesting against an APC candidate who claimed to know my father. For that, I have no regard for her. This is where we are at disadvantage in all round. So it's left for us to educate our people, the constituency, which have over 60% voting power, the youth people. Let there be an agreement, a paper one. We can forget about the APC, forget about Labour Party, forget about that is PDP. Let us advocate for youth inclusiveness, and let us be seen in taking decisions that will affect my own future. You can't plan my tomorrow without me involved.
We're still talking youth participation in politics, especially as the 2023 general elections approach. Austin Okai, National Coordinator of the PDP, Aliyu Audu, National Youth Spokesperson, Tinubu Shetima Campaign Organization, and Issa Abubakar, Director Youth Affairs, Ubi Dati Presidential Campaign Council, are here in our studios with us. And just before we went on break, we've taken the responses of Mr. Audu and Mr. Okai. So, Mr. Abubakar, it would seem that your party, or shall I say your candidate, has managed to harness a lot of the discontent that young people feel. And, you know, as you pointed out in your opening remarks, you know, young people seem to be doing a lot of the things for, you know, for your party and for the campaign of your presidential candidate. But there are those who are saying that perhaps this is a little oversimplified, that it doesn't quite carry the complexities involved in governing a country like Nigeria. Do you fear that, you know, given your own understanding of how Nigeria works and what it really need, what it will take to, you know, take it to the path that a lot of young people expect, that a lot of people understand the weight and the amount of work that needs to be done for them to really be able to make an impact towards the country that they desire?
You know, it's very, very understanding that we are at a time where my political party and as well the presidential candidate we represent is contesting among two money bags that have the...
He's not a poor man. The presidential candidate of your party
no,
I'm
not saying he's a poor man. I'm not saying he's a poor man. He's not a poor man. But when you compare him with these two people, there are people that have been in power at the center stage and as well have controlled a lot of resources within the state they manage, But
he has been in power too.
So definitely you will expect them to do a lot. But one beautiful thing, I keep on using this word, beautiful thing that is about to happen is that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria have signed the Electoral Act, which have made it more easier for a competent candidate to win an election and for our vote to count. And the people we are banking on, which are the young persons that have seen the way their country have been run from 1999 till date, have realized that they are being disappointed by these faces that are still presenting themselves to govern the country.
So when I talk about complexity, given a scenario about, you know, the chances of your candidate if he's able to take it, or if he's able to take it, let me leave it at that. There are three arms of government. There's the executive arm of government. There is the legislature. There is also the judiciary. What do you think is going to be happening in the legislative arm of government if you're also not there at that level? If this campaign is about one person?
It's not about one person. It's about Nigerians. You know, ordinarily, we could have an independent candidate without a political party. Ordinarily, if things being equal and the law that was proposed was actually put into law, we should have an independent candidate without a political party. That is when the will of the people will definitely determine, oh, this is the real person we want. And we're not scared that we already have the masses that are in abject poverty. And if we win this election come February, I don't think because there is nobody in the reps for us or Senate for us that there will be any issue for my party or for my presidential candidates. This is Nigeria. A lot of them will end up even defecting, and after we're going to win. We've positioned people in all these political offices to contest, and we are optimistic that they're going to win. And even if they don't win election, to say maybe because of the spread of all political parties across the country, I am optimistic that Nigeria will protect their own, will protect their presidents.
Let's go to Lagos. Our colleagues also have questions for all of you. Go ahead, guys.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Gentlemen, I'd like to ask you this. Do you have a shared vision for Nigeria? As young people in politics, do you have a shared vision for Nigeria as a nation in spite of your political differences? And I'm talking about Mr. Okai, Mr. Abubakar, Mr. Audu. What is your vision for Nigeria? Because there will always be the question as to why it is we see young people at the corridors or in this circle of politicians whom a lot of people have blamed as to the people responsible for bringing the nation to where it is right now. So I want to backtrack a bit, and I will start with Mr. Audu. What is a vision of the youth in politics for Nigeria? Maybe you using yourself as a, let's say, point of contact to that. Let us know, what is your vision for Nigeria?
All right. Basically, what we want is a Nigeria where the young man is free to participate in every activity he desires and he thinks is competent and has what it takes to play. I do not think, I don't want a free nation when anything is handed to anybody for free. I mean, people don't seem to appreciate what they get for free, which is why for our political party and our young people in our political party, we've worked, we were at the beginning, even before the formation of our party, we've been actively involved in the running and challenging activities within our party to ensure inclusion first thing first. What we want at this point is have a number of young people. You can't own a system you don't partake in. So what we're doing at this point is to ensure that we have that inclusion of young people there. And my presidential candidate, having listened to us, has promised 9
Mr. Audu,
cabinet
Mr. Audu, we'll get to that. And I know it's a campaigning period, but I want to just hear the vision young people have for Nigeria. And you have said yours. I'll go to Mr. Okai now, because I want to maybe weigh and see really, and want Nigerians to hear exactly what vision it is that you have for Nigeria. Mr. Okai, what is that vision that you, as a young person, and by extension, young people in your party have for this nation, Nigeria?
I said it earlier, that you can't plan my tomorrow without me having a say at my level or at the age I am now. Now I'm speaking on behalf of the youths, of Nigerian youth. We must have a policy that will be youth inclusive, where youth can enjoy their own nature. Talk of the unemployment now. You can't talk of the elderly people that they are unemployed. Who are the largest numbers of people that are unemployed today are youth. Look at the just ended strike that lasted for almost 8 to 9 months under APC-led administration. Who are the people that is affected, apart from the lecturer that, of course, is the youth that are already days, years, and months has been taken away from their own life, whether you like it or not. It's going to affect the year they are going to graduate. And you are coming to look for a job tomorrow, they'll tell you that once you are above 20 these years, you are above 30 these years, you can't get employment. There must be a sound policy that will consider youth first. We must sustain this country as an indivisible entity. Okay. And for us to talk of reducing the crime, there must be youth engagement, political participation, political appointment, job creation, employment opportunity. That is, as it is today, we are at disadvantage in all round. And
okay, let me take this to Mr. Abubakar.
Going to National Assembly.
Right, so let me take this to Mr. Abubakar and get his own vision for Nigeria as a youth, and by extension, the youth in your party, Labour Party. Mr. Abubakar.
Abu? My vision is just simple. We look at a country where justice, equity will be the only thing that will make each and every one of us have sense of belonging. We don't want a nation where people take advantage of others because of their population, because of their ethnic affiliation or religion. We want a nation where competency define everything. We want a nation where young persons will see reason to be happy about their nation. And how will that happen? Is by having a working country, is by having a system that accommodates our ideas, our thoughts, that as well a principled nation. And the only way we can have this principled nation is to have someone that is principled to govern, to lead the nation. So my vision for the country is for active participation of young persons in politics, where we will all make this rule very clear this time around. We shouldn't just sit on the fence without being a member of a political party or supporting a candidate we believe in. I don't see my nation moving forward without every young person within the age of 18 to 40 not actively engaging himself in political activities. Because if we do not participate, we'll be left with people that does not have our interests at heart.
Okay, so Mr. Abubakar,
charge of our country, and to take charge of our life entirely.
Okay, so I'd like to do this, and this is for three of you now, Mr. Okai, Mr. Abubakar, and Mr. Audu. I'd like to ask you, Listening to yourselves and listening to the vision you each have for Nigeria, and by extension, maybe youths in your party, does it sound like you have a shared vision? I'd just like to, maybe see three of you, and maybe by nodding your head, does it sound like you have a shared vision for this nation in spite of your political differences?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay, fantastic. I think this is very important to set a background so we all know that the big picture is Nigeria. And I'll take this to Mr. Okai, because I was looking through some of the pictures you put on social media. Apparently you've been campaigning, and you just painted another picture today that indeed leadership positions go to people who are the biggest spenders, not necessarily those who are most eligible, most competent to run for office, because you've said it, money is a major hindrance. And I saw, people who are running behind you, cheering you, a lot of them, on dusty roads, no electricity, young people who look like they could be better taken care of. And, it just hurt me. And I wonder, if you were given a chance as a young person, what would you do differently? Because again, we always refer to people who have led this country in the past up to where it is right now. So as a youth, what would you do differently?
So unfortunately, as a lawmaker, you'll be limited to what you can do. But I will speak for them. I'll make sure their youth, their voice is being heard at national level. You can see them around me because they believe in what I have stood over the years in Kogi State. I have been the major opposition in the state, followed by the like of Senator Dino Melai and Barrister Natasha Akpoti. They believe in me. I complain about the funding, yes, because they are there because of a common ideology. And they know that this man who has stood for them for years will be there, and he will continue to do what he's doing without being given an elective position. I believe that, look at that road you will see. Somebody has to tell the federal government, somebody has to inform the Ministry of Works why the people of Dikina, Ayangba, Ajiolo, down to Uguma and Uboloko in Basa local government need that road to be given a facelift. The major road that leads us there is nobody even discuss about us at the national level anymore. And if you look at it again, the younger ones, their voice is not being heard. And thank God, just as my sister Mokwe said, thank God for the social media today. Thank God for the social media. We felt being discriminated against. I can say this, even my own PDP, the APC. Why should you separate the campaign list between the youth council and the PCC? Can't we be a member of the PCC? What is wrong in not standing on the same podium with Asiwaju? What is wrong in standing on the same podium with P2B? What is wrong in not standing neck to neck with Alhaji Atiku Abubakar at the campaign rally? Why separate our own? Why separate our own list? These are the type of discrimination we are all complaining. And for some of us who have the opportunity of getting the mandate of our party, we will ensure that the tide change. We will ensure that the voice of the people will be heard at the National Assembly, and we will sponsor a bill. We will labor for ensure that the job creation, opportunity, look at the Jakarta state companies. Do you know the number of the jobs that company can create for Nigerians across the 6 political zone? Is lying there. We are talking of unemployment, and the country is not working. There must be a strong legislation that will keep the president on his own seat to ensure that the young people are being carried along, and any policy that is anti-young people will be frustrated by some of us.
Indeed,
Mr.
Audu.
I won't mind leading a protest against the government that is not working.
Audu, you're right when you say that young people must be taken seriously, but they also must work for it. I would like to follow up on, the talk about what vision you have, has initiated by Coyote. But first of all, let's look at inclusion. And when you talk about inclusion, the gender aspect is also key. When you look at the presentation of candidates from the results that have been provided, so far by political parties across the divide, you find that the other parties, I don't want to use the word smaller parties now, have presented more female candidates than the main political parties. For instance, the APC has 9 candidates, 9 female candidates, and the PDP has about 4 or 5. I need to confirm that. So when you talk about inclusion, when there is no gender balance, and I'm taking this to all of you now, but I'm going to start with Mr. Okai. Yes, the APC. I'm going to start with the APC representative. The morning should show the day. And if we even look at, what has been presented by, your political party in terms of appointments for female, politicians, it is dismal. So what should we be expecting, in terms of, gender balance from your political party, should it win the election? Let's start with the APC representative.
All right, there's a commitment in the renewed hope by my candidate saying committing to the 35%, and he's even gone further to say, certain positions in MDAs will be reserved for women, as well as, providing incentives for private sector to ensure a lot of inclusion for women in terms of hiring and employment. As far as I am concerned, with I do not think the idea of wanting to be given preference it should be at the expense of some other person. Like my brother rightly said, what we can all ask for is a level playing field. While we are aware that certain things are against us, we are going to have to work on ourselves. We are going to have to step up. We are going to have to show that we have what it takes. I mean, if we don't work for this thing, if we don't show that we have the capacity, the competence, and the character to act in this position, when we are given, we are going to abuse it. This is not the first time. I mean, we've had a Speaker of the House of the House
Mr. Audu, the challenge is not a lack of competent women, to fill positions. We've seen some of your campaigns ahead of the 2023 presidential elections, and we've seen how women came out, to support your party, your candidate. So it's not a lack of women. So when you say that we must show competence, are you saying that the women in your party have not shown competence?
Not at all. Every contest is a competition. Senator Binani in Adamawa State, who is the gubernatorial candidate of my party for Adamawa State now, won her senatorial election in 2019. I happen to be part of the committee that conducted her primary. And I can tell you that she ran against a number of solid, competent men, but she defeated all of them. So nobody will wake up tomorrow and say Senator Binani was given on the platter. She earned it. And that's one thing we young people, and including other, we need to participate first thing first. Then we need to talk to ourselves. We have the number like we like to mouth. We have the number, we have the number. How are we coordinating these numbers? How are we ensuring that we are able to use? It's a matter of using what you have, where your strength is, against where you don't have the strength.
So gentlemen, let's do less than 60 seconds each as we wind down. Let's start with you, Austin. Why do you think your party will win these elections?
Yeah, Nigerians has tested the party. They have been ruled by the People's Democratic Party with our agenda and manifesto. And today they are testing the All Progressive Congress Party. And it is obvious that when you have tested the two, you should be able to come up with the fact that Nigerians are tired of what is on ground. The economy in comatose, insecurity, highest rate of unemployment, suspicions of the law, the rule of law has been suspended. So Nigerians they want a Nigeria of our dreams. And having seen that APC cannot lead us to the promised land, they have resolved to return back to the People's Democratic Party.
Nigeria wants a different thing. They want a new Nigeria. Nigeria don't want to do things the way they normally do it again. They want to test a new person. They want to bring up something that is quite different from what we are used to. The APC and the PDP are still presenting Nigeria with something that we are used to. I can predict what will happen if Atikus win. I can predict what will happen if Tinubu win. But none of you can predict what will happen if Peter Obi win election. So we need something new. And I believe a new Nigeria is very, very possible. Economy, agriculture, education, youth empowerment. These are things that I'm optimistic that Peter Obi will give it a new face as far as Nigeria is concerned.
I mean, I'm confident of victory. My candidate and my party will win because he's the most competent, he's the most qualified, he's most deserving, and he's got the party with the biggest structure to win the election. I mean, when they talk about new thing, I talk about not being able to predict what happened. I don't think we want to move from uncertainty. We want to move into any sense of uncertainty. We have all of these people who have served in public offices. Their antecedent, their track record speaks for them. It's not time you come and mouth off for what you're going to do, what you want to do. You've had 8 years as a governor of a state in our best period.
He did perfectly well.
And you have 8, I mean, my candidate doesn't have to talk too much. All he needs to do is to point you to Lagos, where he's done. All right. And it's enough for us to see that he's going to just replicate what he's done in Lagos at the national level. All right, Ali, I'll do. Issa Abubakar Osinokai. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for coming on. And we wish you all young people in your parties all the best.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So let's go ahead and take a look at some messages before we wrap up. We've got this email from Henry talking about youths and ownership of political process. He says, entitlement mentality where the youths expect to be invited to the dinner table is one strong reason why they feel alienated in the political process. Our forefathers, forebears didn't want to be invited, nor did they have all the funds, but the zeal and zest to achieve political independence. Oh, sorry.
For fatherland.
For fatherland. Okay, I lost that bit.
Do you still have it? Well, just to finish that, it says today the youths have the energy, population, social networks, including social media, but still wait for another affirmative action to facilitate their participation.
Thank you.
They should wake up and smell the coffee. Oh, that's from Henry Awonono. I'll quickly take this one from another Henry. It's Henry Okeke.
Oh.
And he says the primary consideration for leadership recruitment should be capacity, competence, and experience. Being a youth is merely an added advantage if the above characteristics are guaranteed. Nigerian youths must show capacity, competence, and get involved to gain experience no matter the challenges.
And this one is from Broderick Olabodi, and he's also talking about youth participation in politics. He says, it's my joy seeing youths involved in politics, but it's also important for all political parties to recognize the significance of youth inclusiveness in governance in order to build a strong democracy for the future, rather than seeing them as a ladder to achieve their political goals, which I feel could potentially go along towards addressing the issues currently bedeviling the nation in terms of unemployment and security. Well, Henry says, wake up and smell the coffee.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Or whatever works for you in the mornings. Well, take a look at this one from Dixon Eka. It's a question, actually, and it borders on election itself. It says, I'm a registered voter, but after the close of the continuous voter registration exercise, I searched but couldn't find my permanent voter card. Now that I can't apply for replacement for loss or damage, and with the help of BVAS, if I get my voter identification number, that's VIN, can the BVAS verify my biometrics to allow me vote on election day? You know, it is a question for INEC, but I'm tempted to respond or just quote what INEC has said. There will be no incidents form and all of that. It's meant to be no PVC, no voting, but hey, who knows? We'll put the question out there and expect that INEC will give some response. Guys.
Well, yes, you're right. If you don't have your permanent voter card, you cannot vote. You have to present it. The Electoral Act specifically specifies that one. So do what you can while you can. Well, that is the show today. We thank you all for watching and for your messages as well. We'll see you again here tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain, so have a good day.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
It's always an honor to have you join us. I'm Kaido Kikilo. Have a fantastic day.
And we appreciate those messages. Keep them coming. I am Bukola Samuel. Bye for now.